I don't think it's talked about enough that your capital gains rate could actually be 0%. I don't think a lot of people know that at the federal level, especially if you're married filing joint. It's really appealing. You can, I think this year, tax year, it's like 96,000 plus a 30 grand standard deduction. So you can really have, an income of 126. I'm ballparking numbers here, right? $126,000 of income, and you can pay 0% capital gains tax on that.
Welcome to the Teacher Money Show, the podcast dedicated to helping teachers navigate your unique financial challenges and unlock your financial superpowers. I'm your host, Shaun Morgan, a full-time teacher. That's right, I teach every day just like you, and personal financial coach. I'm here to help every teacher, whether you're a seasoned teacher looking for fresh insights or a new educator navigating your first paycheck to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life. The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither I nor my guests are engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should not act upon this information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional. I'm super excited to have Rachel on the show today. Rachel is a middle school math teacher on a mission to retire early. With a growing family and a love for travel, Rachel is passionate about helping fellow educators save on fees when you're investing and learning how to navigate the world of investing in order to build wealth on their teacher's salary. So we're going to be really diving into this world of investing today. So excited to have you on the show. Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and chat with you tonight.
Yeah, I love talking to teachers about this. I love seeing teachers are starting to open up to this and really like understanding it better. And we're just right here on the threshold. Hopefully we can get the message out and really catch the teaching world on fire with wanting to learn about how to handle our money as well as possible. And because I love talking to teachers so much, I just want to know a little bit about your journey in education and then about how you got interested in personal finance.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is my 12th year teaching. I am a middle school math teacher. I started at the high school level and then got switched down to the middle school, and I absolutely love it. But in terms of like the wealth building and that stuff, I realized that I was working really hard. I thought I was doing the right thing, contributing to a 403B, opening these accounts. And then I found out that my high fee vendor was charging me almost 3% per year in fees, and my money was barely growing. So it wasn't even keeping up with the stock market. And that was kind of like this wake up call. So then I started doing all of this research, diving in, and I realized that if I actually switched vendors, I could retire almost 10 years earlier with almost $1 million more in my accounts. And so after I learned that, I just had to, kind of share that story. And I started reading and learning, listening to podcasts, investing on my own, and then helping other teachers learn about the fees in their accounts and learning how financial freedom really is possible even on a teaching salary.
Yeah. And, this story is so classic, just the whole encountering these terrible vulture vendors out there who are just charging absurd fees and then going down the rabbit hole of figuring out how you can have a much better investing career. I mean, 403B wise naturally is just there to educate people. And I've just heard of story after story after story of people who stumble on it and they're like, man, I've got this high fee. What do I do? And, the high fee, we've mentioned their name on the podcast before. We won't mention it right now, but these companies are just sucking teachers dry. And it's just an absolute travesty that they're doing that. And I'm glad that you were able to get out and now that you're helping others as well.
Yeah, and by doing that, I kind of made like a PDF, like a how to get out of a high fee vendor PDF to share with my colleagues. And then that turned into like one of my most downloaded things from my website, just to help other teachers, because I put screenshots in there for them and kind of walk them through exactly what they need to do, how to find a low fee vendor, how to find even their options. A lot of teachers don't even know that they probably have 8 to 10 vendor options they can choose from. A lot of us were just kind of talked to in the staff lounge or brought after school and convinced like, hey, you should open up a 403B with this, sleazy salesman kind of guy. not realizing that it's really, an insurance salesman selling you a high fee annuity, and you think you're doing the right thing. And as teachers, right, we are so busy, our plates are so full, we give back so much. And so it's like the last thing we're thinking of is that our financial advisor is going to be taking advantage of us, right? Like it's something that you don't even think of, and the fees don't show up on your investing accounts. And it's really frustrating. So one of my main goals is to just kind of educate as many teachers as I can so they can learn and make better choices.
Yeah, I love that. And just question for you. I'm
Yeah.
assuming that since this was such a highly downloaded PDF that you would still have that
Yeah.
available.
Yeah,
Would you be
absolutely.
willing to share a link to that for our listeners?
Of course. Yeah, we can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, so you guys can get the show notes at teachermoneyshow.com/podcast. You'll find the show notes for all the shows there. And if you want this specific link, you can go to the description of this show and find the direct link to that page. And we'll have that PDF on the show notes for this. So you can get out of your high fee vendor if you happen to be in one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have this wake up call, and now you're like, wow, I can get over $1 million more if I invest, with the right vendor, which is just absurd
Yeah.
that happens to be the case. So you're now shooting forward towards, you're going to be a millionaire. I'm assuming you're going to be a multi-millionaire because you're
Yeah.
investing correctly. That sounds like financial freedom, early retirement. What is your plan to get there? What are you doing to move towards that goal?
Yeah, so my plan is to retire early at age 42. So that's in 8 more years. So that will put me at 20 years total in the New York State system and get me still a decent pension. It won't be huge, but it'll be something. And honestly, I mean, my investing plan is like a lot of teachers where I live below my means. I invest consistently every single paycheck. I automate every single thing. I max out my Roth IRA every year. I just started contributing to a low cost 457B plan because I realized that was available to me because I don't have a great 403B option. And then I also invest inside my taxable brokerage account, which gives me a little bit more flexibility to access that money early because I do plan to retire. And I'm going to need some money to bridge me until I get my Social Security and a pension.
Right. I mean, we're talking about like 22 years before Social Security becomes
Yeah.
available, assuming that it's available that early by the time you get there. They might, push their goalpost back for you. So
Yeah,
it's
who
definitely
knows?
some gap there. And we've talked about 457s before. I had a great episode with the millionaire educator, Jerry Bourne. So I'll link to that in the show notes as well for you to look at that episode. And of course, I think Roth IRAs are pretty standard. People know what those are.
Mhm.
But I really want to focus in on your use of a taxable brokerage account, because that's just so against the traditional wisdom. People say you want to invest for retirement, invest in a retirement account, put money into a 403B or 401k or an IRA or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So why did you choose to invest in a taxable brokerage account? You kind of mentioned the flexibility, and what are the benefits of that over a tax advantage account?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I still max out my Roth IRA. I will always, preach that first. That makes a lot of sense for a lot of teachers. But for especially teachers that don't have a good 403B or 457 option, meaning you have only a couple vendors that are all high fee or just insurance annuity products, it might make sense to actually put your money in a taxable brokerage account because you're not going to be paying all of those high fees. And even though you have to pay tax on the capital gains distribution down the road, you could, if you're a long term investor, actually pay 0% on those capital gains eventually. And there's no age restriction to take the money out. So it's a lot more flexible. You can put in as much as you want. So you're not capped at that $7,000 Roth IRA limit. And then the coolest thing that I recently learned is that if you pass away, you can pass on your taxable brokerage account and your children or beneficiaries get what's called a step up in basis. And so they don't have to pay those capital gains. They get it as of, this is kind of morbid, but when you pass away, right, they get it at that level. So they don't have to pay tax on all of those gains in your account. So just something that I'm thinking about, for generational wealth for my two sons that, down the road, I don't have to, give them a hold a big tax burden. They can kind of get that step up in basis too. So
Wow. So there's a lot that we need to
a
unpack.
lot there. Yeah.
So when you're talking about no caps, we're talking about like in an IRA, there's only so much you can put in a 403b, there's only so much you can put in, but there's no limit at all on what you can put into a taxable brokerage account.
Right.
Um, so I mean, are you, if you don't mind me asking, are you putting in enough that you would be able to be hitting like the maxes on those accounts?
Yep. So I max my Roth IRA every year. I have been doing that since 2016. And then this will be my first year. I'm actually going to be maxing out my 457B. And then I don't have a great 403B option. So instead, I'm kind of channeling that money into my brokerage account. So anything above that, 30 grand that I am investing goes into my taxable brokerage.
Yeah. And if you were going to put money into the 403b at this point, it wouldn't be really helpful for you anyway, though, because you need
Yeah.
that bridge, right?
Right. And so for me, I'm prioritizing the 457B, a traditional 457B, because it allows me those early withdrawals versus my traditional 403B. I'd have to wait till 59 and a half anyways, because I plan to retire early. So yeah, so I try and do as much into the taxable um, that I can once I do take care of, the tax advantage retirement accounts. So I still do put money into those, but it's nice to kind of have the flexibility, and I want to be able to have that taxable brokerage. And I don't think it's talked about enough that your capital gains rate could actually be 0%. I don't think a lot of people know that at the federal level, especially if you're married filing joint. It's really appealing. You can, I think this year, tax year, it's like 96,000 plus a 30 grand standard deduction. So you can really have, an income of 126. I'm ballparking numbers here, right? $126,000 of income, and you can pay 0% capital gains tax on that. So it's just something else to keep in mind, especially if you don't have a low cost option, or you are maxing out that Roth and you maybe want to go a step further. Um, Something to keep in mind.
Yeah, so I want to get to that here. So I just want to point out that you're filling the buckets for the tax advantage, because we're not saying don't do that, right?
Right.
Obviously, the Roth IRA,
Yep.
very, very powerful. If you have a 457, I know not every state has that option, but if you have a 457,
Yep.
fantastic, because as soon as you separate from service, if you no longer work for that employer, you are able to withdraw those penalty free, not tax free,
Correct.
but penalty free, right? So there is that benefit that you get of being able to use that as that bridge, and then you're putting the extra money into that taxable brokerage, because as you hold it long term, you're going to be able to probably have a low tax bill. So first of all, for those who might not know, what does long term mean? We're talking about 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Like what is a long term capital gain?
Yeah, so it's actually only over a year. So if you hold your stock positions for more than a year, you are then taxed at what's called long-term capital gains tax. And it's much more efficient, right? You can be in the 0% tax bracket, there's a 15% tax bracket, and then there's a 20% tax bracket. And it maxes out at 20%. So if you are one of those really high income earner, or maybe you even have a high income earner spouse, right? And you're in that, 22, 33% tax bracket, right? For your ordinary income. If you hold in your taxable account this for more than a year, you can get what's called the long-term capital gains rate, and it's much more efficient or
Advantageous, yes.
advantageous. Thank you. I teach math, so
Yeah,
sometimes words are hard for
fine.
me. So much more, yeah, advantageous than having to pay, 33% tax. So if you hold those investments for less than a year, then you are taxed at the short-term capital gains tax rate, and that is the same as your ordinary income rate. So if you are in that 12% bracket, 22% bracket, 33%, whatever it is, then you're taxed at that rate. So it definitely encourages you to be a long-term investor, and you do need to hold those investments for over a year to get those better rates.
Yeah, and really what they're doing, the reason that they're doing this is they're trying to encourage people to invest for the long term.
Yep.
The year mark is probably arbitrary, but they just don't want day traders to be getting, the advantages of investing when they're just moving money around, right? So it's making people who are day trading and earning income that way being taxed as if it's actual income. And then if you're actually investing for the long haul over a year, that's when you get that advantage. And I love how large that number is. I mean, like, we're talking about, we have the 30,000 standard deduction. You said 96,000. Even if you were overshooting it a little bit, like, if you're at $100,000 that you can pull out of these without paying any tax on those gains, that is significant. Especially when you pair that with, say, like you've put into a Roth where you've already paid taxes up front. When you pull that money out, you're not being
Right.
taxed on that money either. So like there's lots of ways that you can combine these things to really, increase the amount that you can pull away.
And I think too, like part of my plan is because I am retiring early, my income will be a little bit lower because I don't have that extra teaching salary coming in. I mean, I still will have my extra money and side hustle stuff coming in, but that again is where I'm shooting to get to that 0% capital gains tax rate because as a married filing jointly couple, we're gonna probably still be in that 12% marginal tax rate bracket, and then hopefully, taking out that capital gains rate at 0% federally would be really nice.
Yeah, and yeah, I love how you point that out. I was going to bring that up too. The fact that once you've retired, your actual active income is so low that
Right.
it really, you don't have anything. It's not like you're building on top of, say, $60,000 a year. You have zero because you're not working anymore. So you're starting at that 0 point with the money that you're pulling out, which I think is a very important point to make. That would be like the money you're pulling out to live on in its entirety, not money that you're on top of what you're making in your regular salary. And of course, just depending on the buckets you pull from, you're probably going to want to talk to a tax strategist about all this stuff because there's so many different buckets with so many different rules, right? If you're getting a pension and some social security in here, and you have a side hustle, and then you have your taxable brokerage, and then you have your IRA or whatever, like it can get really complicated, and your taxes are going to probably reflect that. So don't be like, oh, they said I can pull out 96,000 from my taxable brokerage. Let's just do that. Like,
Always consult your own tax
yeah.
professional. We always
So we're
say
just
that.
throwing some ideas out there.
I love our tax guy. He's very thorough and very good, and I always recommend people to do their own research and make sure that you understand what's going on with your own money.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, do your own research, listen for ideas, and then go check them out yourself.
Exactly.
So if you're not worried about taxes dragging you
Yeah.
down, right? You're like, you know what? I'm not really going to have to pay taxes, and if I do, they're not going to be very high relative to whatever tax bracket I'm probably actually in.
Mhm.
Uh, we've got that part figured out. Okay, we decided we want to put money into taxable brokerage. But what are we doing with it? Like, how are you investing in your taxable brokerage to grow it? And is that different than what you do with, like, say, a Roth IRA?
It's pretty similar. I mean, my strategy is super simple. I mean, I keep it boring, but boring works. I invest mostly in low cost index funds that track the total stock market. And then I also have international. And then I have a very small portion in bonds. So I like to follow what's called the three fund portfolio and have a little bit of that diversification, especially in times like right now where we don't really know what the heck is happening in the US stock market. It's nice to have some of that international exposure and have some in bonds. Um, Now, if you are a long term teacher who's going to be collecting a pension and collecting Social Security, maybe you don't need as much percentage in bonds. So your allocation obviously is going to be different than mine. I'm kind of in this growth accumulation stage, so I do have a huge portion of it in the total stock market and international, and a very small percent, less than 10% in bonds. So I don't try to market pick. I don't try to do individual stocks. I don't try and time the market. I just invest every single week consistently, and it's been working for me. So that's just kind of my long-term plan, and I automate everything.
Low cost index funds. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
It's almost like you guys have never heard that before, right? Okay, so low cost index funds. That is the way that I invest. It's the way that Rachel invests. It is the way that you can research yourself and find out if it's the best way for you to invest. Because once again, I'm not a professional and Rachel's not a professional, but
Yeah.
low cost index funds. Those are pretty awesome. So I really like this three fund portfolio thing you brought up. I have not heard it put in that way before, and
Yeah.
I love how you brought up that you have the majority going into this low cost index fund, and then you got bonds. And I loved your explanation of bonds. I always tell teachers, look, bonds are there to be a stopgap, like a safety net. And if you got a substantial pension, you don't need a safety net; that you already have it, right? But the thing that you brought up that I want to talk about a bit more is that international exposure. How do you decide where to put your money for international exposure? I feel like people can understand, the American stock market pretty
Yeah.
straightforward. International, it's like, do you just say, hey, this Chinese, company sounds great? Or like, what are you doing when you're putting money internationally?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna sound like a broken record, but I just do a total stock market for the international market. So, there's a couple at Vanguard that are really good. You can just Google Vanguard International Stock Market. I think it's VXUX is one of the tickers. Or you could do the same at Fidelity, any low cost brokerage account. So I invest in the total international market as well. I don't just pick certain countries because I don't have the time to do that. Like, we're teachers. I don't have the time to research every single country. Who are the emerging markets? I just kind of buy all of it. And that way I get the winners and the losers and all of it's in one, very similar to the US total stock market as well.
I love that you can just go to any of these brokerages that you're already using. You don't have to go find some fancy international brokerage, right? It's just, like Vanguard, Fidelity, the Charles Schwab, like any of those. I think they changed their name actually, but any of those, big ones that are the low cost brokerage, those are the ones that you would go for, right? Those are the
Yep.
places that you would find that total international market. And then if it's a total international market, it's going to be separated from the total, US stock market. So you can really get that diversification there.
And the cool thing is like you don't have to like memorize all of this. You can go to Google and literally type in Fidelity total international stock market, and it will tell you exactly what to invest in, what the ticker is, what the expense ratio is. So then you can decide, oh, yeah, this is what I want to invest in, or maybe this isn't the company. I'm going to keep doing more research. I have a little cheat sheet on my Instagram, um, for anyone who wants to look at that, that kind of has all of the different tickers. So depending if you are at Fidelity or if you are at Vanguard or if you are at Charles Schwab. Um, but again, you don't have to know all of them. I don't have them all memorized, right? It's just something that you can Google, look it up, and I like to encourage teachers to kind of do their own research because I think you should know what you're investing in and you should know your plan and you should know your risk tolerance too and what you feel comfortable with, because your plan is going to be different than my plan is going to be different than Shaun's plan, right? So making sure that not only are you picking index funds that you want to be invested in, but then also they match your allocation and they match your risk tolerance over time too.
Yeah, I love that. So many things to consider when you're choosing it. And I want to just point out here, like there's all these things to consider, but if you're gonna sit paralyzed for the next 6 months trying to figure out the best total market index fund to put your money into, you might want to just start, right? The difference between this fund and that fund is so minor in most cases if you're with one of these low cost brokerages that just get it going, right? But yeah, risk tolerance is definitely huge. And your what is the fund? What am I putting my money into? Understanding what you're putting your money into is vital. So all of that stuff, fantastic. And once again, We're going to link to that cheat sheet. So go to the show notes, teachmoneyShow.com/podcast, or the link in your podcast description, and we'll have that on the show notes for you to be able to access that if you want to just get all those tickers to look at in a heartbeat. All right, here's another question that is kind of harder. So like if you have your money in
Yep.
your 403b or in your IRA, they've got those age barriers to protect them for retirement. You don't have that in a taxable brokerage account. How do you keep the sticky fingers off of the money that you've invested in the taxable brokerage account?
Yeah, so kind of two things. The first one is we kind of touched about I automate everything. So every week I put in a certain amount, whether it's $50, $100, you can kind of set what you want. And I put that right into my brokerage account and I treat it as if it is a retirement account. So even though I can go into, I use Fidelity and actually see that account, I treat it like it's a retirement account. I don't want to touch that because for me, I want time freedom. I want to be able to travel with my family on a random Tuesday. I want to be able to fly to California and go into the ocean and do all of these things. So for me, like I want to be present with my family. I don't want to work till I'm 65. So that motivation of retiring early, that vision kind of keeps me going and helps me to not dig into to that account, even though it is a lot more accessible because I don't have to wait until I'm 59 and a half to touch that. Just that vision of what's that, the freedom that I want and the life that I want with my family, and knowing I don't want to work till I'm 65, right? And I don't want to give up all of my time to teaching. As much as I love teaching, it's not something I want to do until I'm 65. I don't want to just wait until I can collect a pension and collect Social Security. So that taxable brokerage is like, that's my train to retire early. And so there's no touching it. I haven't ever, had to take a withdrawal from it. I could if I needed to, but that's another reason why you would set up an emergency fund so that you can use that if anything came up instead of reaching it. So in my head, that's a retirement account too. So until I retire early, I'm not going to touch that.
I loved each of those points you made. Just automate everything so you're not even having to like worry about it. Treat it like a retirement account. And I love how you tied that with your vision, right? Of
Yeah.
what I want in retirement. It's not just like something far off. It's like, no, this is what I'm aiming at. And if I take money out, I'm not going to get there, right? And then an emergency fund. Three powerful ways to put a fence around your taxable brokerage account so you don't touch it. If you are worried that that's not going to work, then you might want to lose your password or something like that. Just to, like make it automated and then like, okay, we'll figure out the password thing later. But I don't know. Just to put up some more fences could be something you might need to do. Or you could do the nuclear codes method with the two keys, right? Like
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
the password, but the two-step verification goes to my partner, and we have to like, keep that separate. There's lots of ways you can play a bit more defense on that, but I think that the most powerful thing though is your why. Keep that vision of what you want your retirement to look like. I think that's just going to be the easiest thing to do to keep away from that.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, being connected to your why and just realizing that it's like, yeah, the money is great, but it's more the time freedom that I want, right? I want to be able to take my family to Costa Rica and zip line and teach them about like the science and the different forest layers. Like I want to be able to go scuba diving with them in Australia. And like, so all of these dreams and stuff I have, I'm like, well, that's why I'm investing so heavily now. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping other teachers learn this because we don't have to be stuck in a classroom until we're 65, unless you want to. Like, good for if you want to, by all means, like I'm here for it, but that's just not my dream and my vision. And so having that reason really is a big driver for me, and it helps me make those sacrifices now, knowing later what's kind of to come.
And if you want to be in a classroom till you're 65 and you're 40, give it 10 years. Maybe you don't want to anymore, right? So if you start now to prepare for, I might not want to be in the classroom someday, even if you decide to stay in the classroom till you're 65, you'll be so much better off, right? There's just no reason not to do it. There's no reason to just say,
Agreed.
you know what, never mind. I'm just going to be in the classroom until I'm 65, so there's no need. Because the last thing I want for any of you is to be that teacher that's like, well, I'm only here because I'm getting a pension in 2 years. You're not doing anyone a favor at that point, right? I think that you should leave teaching while you still love it. I think that's an optimal place to be, because it's just better for your students. It's better for yourself all around. It's better to do that.
Yeah, and it's never too late to start investing either. I've heard that a bunch from my colleagues, like, oh, well, I'm already 50, like, there's no point. And I'm like, hey, if you're going to be a long term teacher, like, now is the perfect time to get started. And you got to learn and you got to do it. There's no reason. Like, time is your best friend here. So the earlier you get started, the better.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so we're wrapping up here. I was going to ask you about how you stayed consistent, but I think your vision of the future is
Yeah.
just another time freedom thing. That's really what it's all about. So I think that we've already answered that one. You just stay
Yeah.
laser focused on your why. So we just got a couple more questions to wrap up our conversation today, which has been a ton of fun, by the way. My first question for you is, what is your number one tip for teachers to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life?
Ooh, this is a good one. I think my best advice is just to start, right? To kind of push that fear out, because once you start, even if it's just $1, you don't need the perfect plan. You don't need tons of money. That's the biggest holdup that I hear from teachers is like, well, I don't have anything extra. It doesn't have to be, hundreds of dollars a month. You just need to start. You can go to Fidelity today, open a Roth IRA for free, and invest $1. You can do it. It's not hard. Writing lesson plans is hard. Calling in a sub is hard. Putting your first dollar in is not hard. You can do that, right? So just getting started. And then once you do that, you're like, oh, now I'm going to put in $10. And then you get a little bit more confidence. And then you're like, oh, I can do $50 a month, right? But you need to get started. The earlier you begin, compound interest starts working for you. Your money has more time to grow. So, my biggest piece of advice and tip for teachers is to just start and learn as you go. Throw that perfectionism out the door, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. Your plan is going to change hundreds of times. That's okay. Your investments can change, but just to get started.
I love it. The getting started is probably the hardest thing because we
It
put it
is.
off. We have different excuses. We have different, like, well, maybe next month or next year or whatever. But if you just start it, and I love this analogy that, if you put some money in, you might think, oh, it's going to be so hard without that money. But once you've like not had that money in your budget,
You don't miss
kind
it.
of you don't miss it. You just adapt, right? I always I tell this story about when I eat cereal in the morning because I still eat cereal like I'm five. I'll fill it all the way to the top, right? And I pour in milk and cereal pops out because I filled it too much. But I just broke my bowl and I got a different bowl and I realized that they're different size.
Oh,
So depending
no.
on which size bowl I had, I was getting a different amount of cereal, right? And I had no idea that I was getting more cereal with one or with the other. I was just, filling it all the way to the top. So as soon as you've changed the size of your bowl, you just still fill it to the top. You won't miss it, right? So I think it's just super powerful to just get started. There's no excuse, no age, no, like, I don't have the money. There's no reason why you can't put $1 in, $5, $10. Just start today. Fantastic advice.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've hinted at a couple of resources you have, which means that you have stuff going on that people might be interested. People might want to connect with you and learn more.
Yeah, I would
So,
love that.
what is the best place for a teacher to contact you if they want to stay connected?
Yeah, so I'm most active on Instagram. You can find me at teacher to millionaire, and that's TO, not the number two. And that's where I kind of just document my journey of saving on fees, kind of a lot about my story, but then also advice on how you can get started. There's cheat sheets, there's freebies, there's downloads, there's Excel documents, all the things that can help you get started. So if you are sitting there like, I know I should be investing, but I don't really know how, and I'm scared I'm going to do the wrong thing. There's so much free information on the internet. I try and make it accessible for teachers. I also have a website, teacher2millionaire.com, but honestly, I have most of my stuff on Instagram, so it's easier to find me on there. You can always message me on there. I'm pretty active in my DMs. I love chatting with other teachers and helping them learn and build wealth. So I would love to help you take control of your money and get started.
Awesome. Well, once again, if you go to teachmoneyshow.com/podcast, you'll be able to get the show notes to be able to reach out directly to Rachel on her DMs on Instagram. That's how I connect with Rachel. Very
Yeah.
responsive. So, she's not scary. All right. She won't bite you. So go ahead and reach out to Rachel with any questions you have. I know that she's going to love to connect with you. Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's just been a ton of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad we got to have this conversation, and I hope it helps a lot of teachers out there.
That was a fantastic show. Thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on the show. Now it's time for the clip notes. The clip notes are brought to you by Fidelity. We talked about Fidelity throughout this whole show. Once again, they are not an official sponsor, but I do have a referral link that you can use if you go to the show notes and click on that link when you open up a Fidelity account. I use it. It's just a low cost, easy to use, has all of these index funds on it that are low cost, whether you're going with the total stock market index fund or an international fund, whatever it is. They've got the low fee funds out there. So that's what I use. If you want to use it too, you can use my link. I would appreciate that. It would support the show. And they're just one of the best. So that's what I would recommend you look into. Now on to the clip notes. Number one, start with maxing out an IRA. Before you get into taxable brokerage accounts, make sure you are putting money into retirement accounts because they're tax advantaged, which is a good thing. You just don't want to blindly put money into a 403b, not knowing what kind of fees you have. But the IRA, powerful tool. 457 can also be really powerful. Once again, check what your 457 is like. It is varied, sometimes from state to state, and sometimes even districts have different 457 things going on. So make sure you are looking into that. But once you've done that, you can go into a taxable brokerage. And the question is why? Well, clip note number 2, taxable brokerage has a lot of benefits. It's flexible. You can put money in, take money out without any money restrictions. There's no cap on how much you can put in, while there is a cap on your retirement accounts. It has low taxes if you put it in for the long term, which is just over a year. You could have 0% taxes or maybe 15%, depending on how much money you make, how much your income is when you start withdrawing that. And you're able to pass it on to your beneficiaries, and they get some benefits when you do that. So it's just a lot of really great benefits to using a taxable brokerage account. Number 3, the 3-fund portfolio. I loved this way as a way to mitigate risk, to diversify, right? You can have your total stock market index fund, your bonds, once again, only if you need them. If you are going to have that pension, bonds might not be as necessary. And then I love this. This was key, international exposure. And once again, all this can be done through your low fee brokerage like Fidelity. So make sure you are thinking about that, especially if you feel like it's a riskier market. You might want to diversify outside of the American market in that case. Once again, do your research, make sure you know why and how you want to do that before you proceed. Number 4, automate everything. That is a key to keeping you separate from your taxable brokerage account. You need to just make sure it's automatically going in without you even thinking about it. Another key is to treat it like a retirement account by keeping your vision in mind. Know what you want in retirement and why you're putting money into the taxable brokerage account. Then you won't be tempted to pull it out to go on some trip to Cancun. You can also avoid having to pull any money out by having an emergency fund. Those 3 things will put a fence around your taxable brokerage account, so you won't need to pull money out from it ever. And then you can enjoy the benefits of it in retirement, which those benefits include, most importantly, number 5, time freedom. Time freedom is way better than money. When you can do whatever you want, that is what freedom is. When you have that freedom to go anywhere and do anything with those you love, that's what money is for, not the other way around. You don't put time into money because money is what matters. Put time into money so money can buy you time, more time than you would originally have without investing that money. And then number 6, just start. That is the thing to do. If you don't know where to begin, just begin. Put $1 into an investment account, open it up. Once again, I just can't say enough how much I love using Fidelity. It's easy to use. You can use them or any other of these low-cost brokerage companies and just get started today. All right, those are the Cliff Notes. I think this is a fantastic show to just help us understand that there are so many different pieces that come together when you're investing, when you're trying to go for early retirement, and you're going to be able to grow your wealth just in a huge way by taking advantage of these different options. But remember, regardless of how you grow your wealth, as a teacher, you are already rich. Your wallet just needs to catch up. Are you worried you won't have enough money to retire? Or maybe you just don't know how you're going to get out of all of this debt. Whatever your situation is, I can help you. Go to teachermoneyshow.com/guest and fill out the form there, and you can come on the show for free coaching, or we can meet one-on-one to discuss your needs. I look forward to talking to you.